Right. Like if you're sitting and you go, oh, I'm not going because this don't work with him. I'll never do that. Yeah, I think I can take him. Right. You want to fight the nigga you think you can beat?
Maybe we need to change the word for the youngsters. The checking in part, is they seem to get hung up on that word checking in.
Yeah.
So if we could diversify that word and bring it up to a 2021 thing.
That's right. What's the word, OG? What's the word?
Yeah, and look, maybe we may want to tell them they need to get connected. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe that's the proper word, connected, properly connected.
Yeah.
Or not.
Yeah, they getting tripped up on the semantics.
Yeah, they get stuck. I mean,
Yeah.
right there, you stuck. So then you stuck on stupid, right?
Yeah.
You're stuck on stupid, and you're not using your powers or access to powers that you have. You're looking at it as a negative versus a positive. We all know if you can tap into good people wherever you go.
Wherever. Yeah.
But I mean, it's a blessing, Rick.
Real talk. Real talk.
And who want to have access to power?
Spy J. Prince's recent criticism of him for addressing federal authorities in Houston and thinking that the fallout could soon shock the city's power grid to its core. 50 Cent stated that he would not give up on his 50 Cent energy. No one told you needed this drama. In his public accusation of snitching, J. Prince, who had spent decades building his reputation, made the most grave charge against anyone in our industry. Yet, his transgression went beyond words because, as we all know, he does not talk unless he wants to. 50 Cent went directly to the federal authorities to manage his company in Houston, he claimed, bypassing the local gatekeepers who maintained order on the streets. You know who these gatekeepers are? Then J. Prince enters the picture. You can see that in Houston, checking in is more than simply a kind gesture. J. Prince has long been at the forefront of the system that requires artists who move through the city to be respectful of the law enforcement officers that patrol the streets.
There's supposed to be a certain protocol for people to check in?
No, and I begin with me, and then he can speak for the other generation. But I'm a never, you know what I mean? We don't have time for no such shit.
And 50 Cent, however, did not carry out that plan. Instead, 50 took with him his entire company, employees, and enterprise. Arriving and setting up shop, he acted like a king and claimed his area, seemingly in an attempt to change the city's regulations. More than just rap music, Houston was about power, relationships, and commitment.
I moved from New York now. I'm a Houston resident. I'm out here. I'm trying to, do some things for the community.
And additionally, 50 was now openly questioning the framework that had been established around the system, which infuriated J. Prince, who saw 50's activities as disrespectful and considered them to be more than a business endeavor. A huge bombshell was dropped by J. Prince when 50 did not fit in. To establish that he was genuinely assisting the government, he even went so far as to create fake documents, claiming that 50 people were out there conspiring with them. Everything was being attacked the way it had always been done. Crazy. Especially considering that Big Meech was implicated in snitching by 50 and now appears to have been behaving in a similar way. Then things truly got ugly. Whoa. The rap industry was so quiet that it was almost deafening. Individuals were aware of this. Being a snitch is not something anyone desires. Not on the streets, not in hip-hop, and especially not when your entire identity is centered around rebellion, power, and untouchability. Might drastically change 50's story and threaten his already established status as the maestro of drama and the king of petty. The problem is that 50 Cent is obstinate. Not by tension, not by hardship, not by anything, but what does he do next? In fact, he gets really good at trolling. Because he was worried about his reputation, he used social media as a platform and wrote a string of disparaging remarks about J. Prince that only a man in his 40s could muster. He had to defend himself this time after being accused of being a snitch before. Do you recall? In a game that had already surpassed him, he accused J. Prince of being outdated and attempting to play the gatekeeper. He questioned J. Prince's actual authority and proposed that the system as a whole was a protection racket posing as street devotion. No, 50 wasn't only defending, he was attacking against Jay. Prince's orders. Face him directly. Without reservation or dread, Prince, however, essentially ignored the whole matter, claiming that since he has a lot of money to spend, true money is not involved in such things. The entire process of checking in is confusing to him. He hinted that although real ones no longer aim for it, there are still benefits to rolling with him. He had no desire to make ours. There's a whole different vibe when he pulls up in his city with a cool person. Respect, not fear, is what he means when he calls you a friend and treats you with deference. And he says that everyone in the area knows. About after this, supporters viewed 50 Cent as the underdog and the entrepreneur who was genuinely attempting to shift the narrative and try something more ambitious than the typical street hustle, which caused Twitter to go crazy. As soon as these two begin to argue in public, you know what will follow. In public, they gave him their full support. Even if the lines of war had been drawn, Houston was no longer the exclusive target of this language conflict. Who could dominate the conversation and influence hip-hop's future? Additionally, fans and the media scrutinized every small they disclosed behind-the-scenes information, conducted interviews, and posted on social media. Everyone was interested in finding out who was being honest. But 50 Cent's problem is that he always has a long game and then throws you a curveball when you think you know where he's coming from. This makes him dangerous since he has the moves, the strategy, and the ability to manipulate people's emotions. At this period, business was less essential then. We'll start with the check-in process since this is where things start to get a little tricky. It's a street. In places like Houston and Los Angeles in particular, when you arrive, you speak with the influential people in the area. Although others may not view that as a show of respect, 50 Cent and other musicians believe that control is more important. His reputation has always been that of the person to check in with. It is almost legendary to make the wrong rounds while you are in his city and his mafia-affiliated group. People consider it an open challenge. He succeeded, however, when 50 touched down in Houston. It didn't look like he had come for a concert, and he wasn't checking in with anybody. He took his after moving in, the complete brand opened its doors. The decision was a wise business one. A robust black business culture, no state income tax, and a thriving market for luxury liquor like Branson Cognac are all features of Texas. On the roadside, however, 50 appeared to be moving in a different way. Not all of them need to be seen. During his speech, Jade did not sit right with him that the prince decided to resolve it publicly rather than privately. The shocking revelation he then made might permanently damage your reputation in the hip-hop business. The problem is that it failed to receive 50, which destroyed the story. He pushed it aside with a sarcastic laugh. The checking-in culture and essentially concluded that managers should develop rather than check in, which he did. Just a few months later, 50 was doing more than selling alcohol and hosting parties. He was making a significant difference and was dedicated to his work. He was not simply passing through Houston culture. He was becoming part of it. He made a major splash with Branson Cognac's introduction by using pop-up tastings, celebrity gatherings, and other activities. Still, he kept up his PR. Together with nearby schools, he founded the Judy Business Lab, which teaches children how to get money not via sports or rap but through business. Lines were long. Happy families. A free Thanksgiving feast. He was shakily shooting pictures and conversing with people as if he belonged there, while 50 people were engaged in charity activity and Christmas toy drives. For his efforts in Houston, he even won a humanitarian charity award. This shift completely upended everything because, while Prince contributed to Houston's street history, 50 was forging closer relationships with the corporate power community and establishing a public persona that was impervious to past allegations or threats. November, when Houston granted 50 days on the 24th, it was a declaration rather than merely a thank you gesture. 50 Cent, when he seized power in the city according to his own rules. The Unity Business Lab was founded by him to teach high school students how to launch businesses. Houston became both his new home and his playground, and then the offers came. He has partnerships with the Astros, Rockets, and Texans with his liquor company. 3 major sports teams in a city, Houston, were not only allowing him in but also asserting his legacy. This was reducing his age by 50, but it wasn't just his good looks. The flag in a city that already has a lot of influential people without permission in and of itself, that would have been brave, but doing it in Prince's city was essentially revolutionary because, let's face it, no one was heading that way before 50 pulled up and did what 50 typically does, but not before kissing rings first. As if he had been invited in, he walked in and was met with cheers rather than opposition. At that point, rumors began to circulate that perhaps this neighborhood was starting to change. His name was suddenly being discussed by more than just fans. He was also being co-signed by local officials, business owners, and student leaders. People began to wonder why the local Titans hadn't done this kind of community service before. They'd never organized a toy drive, set up a school lab, or sat down with Fifth Ward children and said, "You can build something too." As 50 Cent was gaining ground and changing the city's vibe, the strain below was beginning to emerge, despite their claims to speak for the neighborhood. Check-in kissing rings and traditional political games were becoming less popular. Prince J. Second, he was doubling down and clinging to his plan instead of adapting, as if gang ties and notoriety were still vital to the city. It annoyed young people rather than frightened them. Gatekeeping was not to their liking. What they wanted was actual motion, and 50 had it. He was making his way into council chambers and bars in Houston. That shift threatened not just Prince but the whole structure he had spent decades creating. That's because the fact that someone may travel like that without permission and without kissing the ring casts doubt on whole systems. When that happens, pride and territory lose their significance. This was related to identification and the person speaking. Who in Houston was holding prisoners? It wasn't only the fact that Prince had previously taken a chance by labeling 50 people spies, which was a very bad thing for his reputation, but also the context in which he said it. There was a lot of activity on the streets because the accusation wasn't just an assault. It was a defense and a last resort, because if 50 could enter the city and bring opportunity, respect, and influence without going through the so-called gatekeepers, then what were they protecting? Wasn't merely a personal feud. It was a covert conflict between legacy and momentum, street politics and public power, and freedom and fear. At the time, freedom was triumphant. People started to looking sideways, not just in Houston but at 50 as well. Was there a covert power struggle going on somewhere? And if so, why now? With 50 already established in the city and surrounded by lawmakers, corporate executives, and educational institutions, why call him out? Prince felt compelled to leave his home, right? It seemed not only a personal conflict, but also a struggle for power between the old and the new. The game revolves around 2 of the most obstinate, powerful, and arrogant characters: respect versus reputation, and the streets versus the suits. It's unclear what the future holds for Houston's hip-hop scene. Renowned individuals who have influenced the scene, considering that 50 Cent has been accused of being a snitch. Will he actually quit the long-standing check-in culture, or will J. Prince utilize more accusations to demonstrate his continued power? The narrative feels like a heated game of chess with each new move. There will undoubtedly be more incredible moments in the upcoming chapter, so fans and industry insiders are on edge. The story is far from over. What are your predictions for the future? In addition to remembering to subscribe and click the alert, kindly leave your thoughts in the comments section below.